So hello, Natalie. How are you doing? Welcome to the Homeschool Project Podcast.
Nathan and Anita, thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. We're glad you could join us. We know you're on the road and on the West Coast, so it's a big time difference for us, but thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So can we just start with you introducing yourself, kind of tell us a little bit about your background and what it is that you do?
Yes, and thank you for the opportunity to do so. My name is Natalie Cottrell. I'm here to teach you how to teach your kids. Nobody else do what I do, baby.
Love it.
I am broadcasting live from Seattle, Washington, where I am the founder, owner, and director of Grasshopper Montessori. We are an academic preschool with a focus on kindergarten preparedness. We also have an in-home program where I work one-on-one with children in their homes, customizing curriculum based upon each child's interests, skills, and needs. Most of our students go into kindergarten with exiting kindergarten skills. They are able to read and write full sentences, add numbers to 10, spell by recall, a plethora of sight words, but most importantly, they maintain their natural joy of learning. I started Grasshopper Academics as a means to bring my curriculum to you. Grasshopper Academics is an online source for downloadable ebooks, shippable curriculum, and inspiration. You can find all of my stuff at grasshopperacademics.com.
Nice. Yes, and I have already taken a look at some of at your website and all your different pages, and you are a wealth of knowledge, that is for sure, and very encouraging as well.
Thank you. I've basically been doing this for my entire adult life, and starting a preschool and being online and teaching parents is never something I anticipated. I didn't even set out to do this, but when I learned about the Montessori philosophy, and when I started working with kids in their homes and realizing how much we mistranslate children's behaviors and how we respond according to that, and how that kind of puts allows us to butt heads with our kids, I felt like this is really something I can go on and on and on with. And it was such a valuable tool to me too, just as a parent. My daughter is 16 now. She was 5 at the time when I learned about the Montessori philosophy. So when I discovered it, I was thinking, oh my goodness, if I knew this when she was 2 or 3 or 4, I would have been a better parent. She would have been a better student. We would have a better relationship. So I'm glad that I can share this with the people that are willing to listen.
Absolutely.
Can you just tell us really quick how you went from, I don't know, were you a teacher before, and then did you just open a school and become an entrepreneur?
That's a good question. I was never a teacher, never intended to be a teacher. I was a nanny for 5 years. I'm a single parent, so I knew the ever-present demand for childcare, as you guys probably experience often. And then when I learned about the Montessori philosophy, I wanted to combine this wealth of knowledge and the Montessori approach with the need for childcare. So that's how I came up with the in-home program. So it was a way for parents to be able to go to their doctor's appointments or read a magazine or take a nap or talk on the phone or work, while allowing me to work with their children. So it was more than just a babysitter. I would bring all of my materials with me, and I would customize the curriculum based upon what I see each child doing from day to day, and really learning about what their natural tendencies are. So I did that for a few years and quickly generated a waiting list. And the only way to accommodate the waiting list was to open a preschool. So then we opened a preschool, and now we have several different programs, and we're online, and I'm writing my own curriculum. And I'm so grateful, because I know, just as a parent and as an educator and working with kids in so many different environments, how just really what kids are capable of. And I've been doing this, like I said, for 10 years, but it blows my mind still to recognize how capable our children are if we just put them in an environment that allows them to reach their potential. So I'm just here to share my passion with you, and I've got so much of it.
It's very obvious. That's incredible. I didn't even know that you started with just an in-home. That's really neat. And then you ended up opening the brick and mortar. That's wow.
Yeah, yeah. I just had this idea, and as a single parent, I was thinking, I need to create something where I can be available for my child, something that I can make my own rates, make my own hours. And I looked online to see if this was even a good idea. Nobody else was doing it. So I was kind of inspired by that, but then kind of thinking, well, maybe it's not such a good idea because nobody else is doing it. But it just took off. It took off so fast. I worked with one family and they referred another family, and those families referred other families. And it was just a really beautiful thing to see these relationships form organically, and therefore the business grow organically as well.
Wow. That's also very encouraging to any single parents listening that you created that on your own.
Yes, I'm very passionate about single parenthood too. And I was broke. It's not like I don't have any experience in business either. So I remember I had to save up for several months. I had to save up to have $500 to purchase supplies, and I was making my own materials, and I just kind of went door to door and talked to people and was able to put some things online, and one thing led to another. So you don't have to see the whole staircase, right? Dr. Martin Luther King says you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step and doors will open up to you.
Yeah, that was a big part of why we wanted to talk to you as well, because we had read your story, and we always think it's awesome, when especially homeschooling and educating kids. A big part of that is teaching them entrepreneurship and the things that you've done, and that if you work hard, you can make things happen. You don't have to have a lot, and if you work hard, you can put it together. So good on you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think kids they naturally think that way, right? To them, nothing is an impossibility. Nothing has to be put on hold. Everything is immediate and everything is specific. They don't think in terms of, maybe I can do this, or maybe that's a possibility, or maybe I want to do this. I want the pink one. I want to ride my bike. I want to go to the park. I want to do it now. And it's just I feel like that gets trained out of us as we get older. But that's one reason why I love working with kids, because just everything is so possible, and it is possible right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's called life. It crushes you. Crushes your
Yeah.
dreams.
Unfortunately, it's true.
If you keep the mind of a child, sometimes it's can be pretty special. You can do a lot that way.
Absolutely.
I actually, on one of your Facebook lives, you had said, you don't have to teach kids to love learning. It's already there. We have to make sure we keep that love for learning alive. And that's exactly what you're saying. And when I heard that, I was like, I have to write this down. I love it.
Oh, good. Oh, good. It's really about just changing our perspective of kids. And really the best way to work with them is kind of counterintuitive to what we do as adults and what we do as parents. We think we have to explain so much and teach them so much and prepare them so much, but they have so much ability already inside of them that if we just give them an opportunity to try and explore and do things on their own, then whatever lesson they learn is going to be so much more valuable than any terms and phrases and discussions that we present to them.
Absolutely. Well, so before we start getting into the meat and potatoes already, we'll backtrack a little. I had done an episode on the 6 more popular homeschool methods. And in that, it was like a mini series, but I had told the parents, I said, there are many more methods of homeschooling that people follow their philosophy. And one of them is the Montessori method. That is another one that's on the list of a lot of homeschool families that they follow it. And before we get into that, I don't know if you're aware, but our second child, when we used to both work, because homeschooling is new for us, this is our second year, but when we were both working, our second was going into pre-K 4, and we just knew right away that he was not going to be a traditional classroom type setting child. Like, he has so much energy, he has a love for learning, but he cannot sit in a desk all day long. And Nathan and I just knew that that was not going to work for him. And so when I remember when Nathan was working, my mom went with me and we took a couple days to go tour different preschools. And one of the days we went to the Montessori school first. And then after that, we went to a private school that was a traditional type setting. And I'll never forget, in the middle of that tour, he tugs on my mom's dress and he goes, I want to go, this is not my school. I want to go back to my school, the one with the dinosaurs. Mm. And it was like, and it was so obvious to us that the way that the Montessori classroom is set up, it's very inviting to the child. And he just felt right at home with that. And when he went to like a different type of setting, and that classroom was cute. It wasn't like, you know, blank walls, but he didn't feel as inviting with that one. And so with that being said, we didn't know a whole lot about the Montessori then, but we just knew that this is what he wants. We had a general idea of Montessori, and we were like, this must work better for him, better than the other option. So we put him in there. But can you explain to our listeners a little more on the actual Montessori method and the philosophy behind it?
Absolutely. And just to point out real quick, Anita, I did hear your mini series and you did it all by yourself. And I was thinking, oh man, she did so much work to put this together and it was so valuable. So whoever is listening right now, be sure to listen to that mini series. It's so valuable, especially if you're getting into homeschooling this year for the first time because of the pandemic. But yes, so Maria Montessori said that the environment is the third teacher. So your kids learn from just the environment that they're in. And I know when families tour our school, I'm zoned in on the children and how they respond to my school and to the environment and to the elements in it, because it's meant to naturally draw their attention. Mm-hmm. It's meant for kids to touch things and pick things up and explore things and walk from location to location and visit different planes, sit on the floor, sit at a table, stand up and do some work. And every child that visits our school, they're kicking and screaming when they have to leave because they feel the same thing. Like, this feels really good. There's something about the energy in here, the setup of the environment that is so welcoming to me. And in a perfectly active Montessori environment, it feels like a buzzing beehive. So it's busy but not chaotic. There's sound but it's not noisy, and children are focused. They're not being silly. They're not taking anything from each other. They are in a zone in what they're doing, and they're honing their skills and they're focused on what they're doing, and they're really enjoying it. And if you can get a child focused on something that they enjoy, that love, that natural joy inspires them to do more. So it's never an element of forcing the child or bribing the child or trying to coax them into doing something. You just allow them to feed off of this spirit of, oh, this feels good. This is challenging. I'm feeling successful. I'm feeling independent. I'm feeling achievement. So they don't thrive on the sticker that they get at the end or the reward that they get at the end. They thrive on that feeling of success. I accomplished this. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's just all humanity, right? If you feel good at something, you're going to want to do it some more. If you feel like you're failing at something, you're not going to want to do it. And that's one aspect of the Montessori philosophy that is so valuable, is that it really just speaks on who we are as humans. So it doesn't matter what country you live in or what continent or what language you speak or from what culture you are. It's really just speaks to who we are as humans. So it's not going to change based upon, STEM being created or phonics being important for this generation. It's never going to change, and it's been the same since the beginning. So it's really just a matter of understanding the child from the child's perspective, and instead of dictating or predicting what your child should be doing and when they should be doing it, it's you as your job as the adult is to make observations of your child. So if you see that your child is naturally trying to draw letters or pretends to read books, then that's your cue as the adult that they are now interested in learning to read. So let's bring out some sounds, let's bring out some letters and learn the letter sounds or the alphabet. But it's really more of, like in Montessori, we don't consider ourselves teachers, we call ourselves guides, because the child is their own teacher. And we just make so many observations that we are in tune with each child and what they are interested in from day to day. And as soon as we see what they're interested in, we bring out academic materials that help support that interest. And then we let them explore those materials and explore those lessons until they're saturated and they don't want to do it anymore. So we don't say we can only work on this for 20 minutes. We just let them do it for as long as they want, because they're not going to want to do it forever. Eventually they'll move on to a different interest. And then that's when we make our observations again and make sure that the environment supports that interest. So there's lots of materials for Montessori, but just the methodology behind it is just your mindset.
A lot of observation. I like that. I think that's something that I could still work on as the parent and as now the educator, facilitator, as you might say. I especially see that with our son still. I feel like our oldest, she's 9, and she seems to be just fine with routine and schedule and the few workbooks that we do have. Like, let's say if she's working on cursive, she loves her workbook. Our son, on the other hand, like for instance, today, I have this, handwriting without tears for him to continue working with his print. But he said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to look at my adventure book and copy sentences from that book. So he wanted to do copy work, but through his adventure book. And I'm like, okay. So I just had to let go. And it's like you said, you have to be observant and see what it is which way they're going. And sometimes that's hard, especially at the beginning for me being an educator, and I'm still learning. And that's why I love to hear your view on this, because I absolutely think that that's kind of the way that he's going.
Yeah, well, that's good, because when he basically provided an alternate to practice the same skill that you wanted him to practice, right?
Yes.
So it's not like he said, I don't want to work on my printing, my cursive, and I want to watch TV instead. He said, well, this is a different way I can do it. And it's very Montessori-esque for you to respond and say, okay, yeah, that's fine. Because there's more than one way to practice anything, right? And there's more than one way to do anything. And if the child knows well enough what the skill is, and he can come up with his own ways to practice it, imagine how more inspired he's going to be the next day, because you allowed him to do that instead of dictating and saying, no, you have to do this workbook. So kudos to you, Anita.
Thank you.
Is there a specific type of child that responds best to the Montessori method?
That's a good question, Nathan. Because it's so based on humanity and really just how the brain works, at a young age, it's really positive I've never had a child in my school that I didn't feel like was the right fit, because it is so just based upon humanity and that natural joy of learning. And we're able, because of that, it's not a blanket curriculum. It's not a one size fits all. We're able to customize lessons and work with children individually. So I think it's more so for the parents. Maybe the parent isn't too interested in a Montessori philosophy or in the Montessori environment. So I think for children, it's really valuable. I mean, when I learned about it, I felt inspired as a human, as an adult, because it allowed me to see people differently, and it allowed me to understand how I was communicating to not only children and my daughter, but to people in general, and just gave me this big appreciation for humanity and citizenship.
So when we were doing our research for this, I was reading some of the kind of the key pillars of Montessori. And like, for example, one of them was that everything in the classroom is like the scaled down to the child's size, right? Is that correct? Yes. So
Yes.
what are some of the what are some other like key pillars of Montessori? If somebody was interested in actually doing this, like what are some of the key pillars that you would implement like in your classroom
Or your home for
or
the
your home?
homeschooling family.
Your home. Yeah, yeah. So just feeding off of what you just said, Nathan, the reason why having an environment that's scaled down is so valuable is because every time, if you imagine yourself living in the house of a giant. So you have giant chairs, really high sinks, and you have to struggle every time you want to do something as simple as washing your hands or eating or going to the bathroom or sitting in a chair, and everything is so challenging. And to a child, or to anybody, if you experience challenge after challenge after struggle all day long, by the end of the day, no wonder kids are frustrated and exhausted and have to have that one toy because they haven't felt that feeling of success and they're not experiencing very much peace and achievement throughout the day. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you are setting up your environment for your kids, is just making sure there's as much free flowing space, that they're not involved with too many hurdles that they have to get through physically every day, because every time they're able to get a cup out of the drawer and close the drawer and return the stool, that's a feeling of success. If they can put their shoes in the right location, that's a feeling of success. If they can go to the bathroom and pull up their pants and wash their hands with no challenges, that is a feeling of success. So pay attention and your child's mindset. Look at your space as if you're a 3-year-old and try to recognize where there's a lot of hindrances, a lot of obstacles that will prevent your child from being successful. So that's one of the main things you can do without even purchasing materials, is just paying attention to your environment. Does your child have free access to snacks? So instead of being reliant on you for a snack, is there a variety of foods that they can access whenever they want? Is there do they have a drawer that's low enough where they can get their own plates and cups and silverware? Little stuff like that. The other thing is, you don't have to have a lot of materials. You don't have to purchase materials to implement Montessori into your home. Kids, especially, I work with mainly 2.5 to 6-year-olds, so a lot of what that is it involves practical life skills. So use things in your environment. Use ice cube trays and give your child all the trinkets that they collect and have them put one trinket into each section of an ice cube tray. And that's math skills because they're learning a 1-to-1 ratio. That's fine motor skills because they're using actually it's a pre-writing skill because they're using their 3 fingertips to pick up one small object at a time, and that's going to help with their printing. You can get even more fine motor and use tweezers to pick up cotton balls or little trinkets to put in the ice cube trays. Let them be active in your day. Have them put away the silverware from the dishwasher and they can sort it into the sections. Have them be responsible for organizing the shoes at the door every day. But the more they can feel like they're an active citizen in your community as a family, the more they're going to thrive. And the fewer tantrums you'll experience and the few pushback and behavior problems you'll experience. So don't think that your child is a younger or lesser capable being. Understand that your child is extremely capable and give them opportunities to express that. So without having any materials, just having this mindset is a way to implement Montessori into your homeschooling.
I like that.
Now you mentioned the age of the child and especially in your classroom. Is this built around a certain age group, or is it good from pre-K to high school?
So Montessori is actually from infancy on. So if some of your listeners have babies, there's lots of things that you can do with your infant as soon as they're old enough to move their bodies and manipulate their hands. there's lots of things that you can do all the way from infancy. There's nursery setups. You can set up your nursery as if it were Montessori inspired. So instead of having a crib that confines them and makes them reliant on an adult to wake them up and an adult to lift them out, a Montessori preschool would have, for example, a mattress on the floor. And when the baby is finished napping, they can crawl out themselves. And of course, you would set up the rest of the room so it would be safe. But little stuff like that. If your child is 1, they love pots and pans. So give them 2 pots and 1 lid and have them see if they can find the best fit for that lid. So that's all the way from infancy. There's even high school Montessoris now, which I haven't explored too much, but Montessori is becoming a bigger and more prevalent philosophy. So it's all the way from infancy up to high school, 12th grade.
Yeah, sorry, I was ask her a question real quick, because I had, when I was looking into this again, something that caught my eye in the research, and obviously you don't deal with this, but I found some information on the high school age kids, and one of the articles mentioned that there were some working farms that were using the Montessori method, and they were teaching them, skills, but also admin skills and finances, and that was all part of the learning program. And that was a Montessori school was actually at a working farm. I thought that was super cool, because that's something I would have liked to have done in high school, and I think you would get a lot out of it more than sitting in a regular, at least for me, sitting in a regular classroom all day. But I don't know if you've read anything on that kind of setup. But I just thought it was pretty awesome.
It is. It's so valuable. It's like putting children and people in real life experiences, and then allowing them to learn these subjects of math and reading and writing based upon this real life scenario. So I remember in high school, and you probably do too, Anita, but it's like, when am I ever going to use this chemistry? When am I ever going to use this algebra? I don't need to know what the difference between a verb is and how to conjugate. When am I ever going to use that? So it flips that idea on its head, and it puts children in real life situations, so they learn not only these math or educational skills, but they can apply them immediately to a lifelong element. Mm-hmm. And so that was good research, Nathan. That was an excellent point to bring up.
Yeah, I feel like so many of the homeschooling families, their motto is to create lifelong learners. And these are the ways that you're going to do it, to practical ways of learning, and how you're going to tie it back to real life, as opposed to everything just being so textbook.
I apologize. Our little one walked in. Well, so I asked you a question, and then I got up and left as you were answering it. He decided to walk in.
You missed a great answer.
I'm sure I did. I'll listen to it later.
All right. And Natalie, I love how you are on Facebook and Instagram. And I found on your Instagram page, you spoke on the power of mastery, and basically how mastering foundational skills before moving forward and skill level brought up an example. And you brought up the example of mastering addition before moving on to multiplication. And this just resonated with us, because when our daughter came out of traditional school, so she had been with the schools and we started to homeschool her, she did not have that foundation built. And so when I went into 3rd grade with her, I was like, I cannot move on to multiplication, because it was exactly this example. She was still struggling with math, addition in itself. And so we had to backpedal and go back to basics in addition in order for her to be able to move forward. But the beauty in homeschooling is that we had that luxury of time and that luxury of being able to cater to her needs. And so I just thought that was really important, what you brought up with the power of mastery.
How did she feel when you went back to addition? Was she able to master it? And if so, did you move on to multiplication where she picked it up easier?
Yes, once when we went back, you could tell she had already started to build this confidence again in math. She had no confidence at all in math. It was really sad. And she would tell me, but I love math. And it was like, she like didn't want to give up on it, but she really was struggling. And when she was in traditional school, we kept getting notes that like she needs to practice at home, yet they're supposed to be with a no homework policy. And I'm like, how do you not have homework if she's behind and the class is moving forward, you know? So when we went back to basics and worked on addition and subtraction, absolutely, she felt much better. She felt confident. And then she was like ready to go forward with multiplication and enjoyed it.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Girl, this is like my soul right here, because I do work with kids one-on-one, and I mostly it's pre-K, but I get a lot of kindergarten and first grade parents coming to me because of this exact situation. My child's, in first grade, but they are not at grade level in all of these skills. And I work with them for, 4 or 5 sessions, and boom, they're already back up to grade level or farther. And it's because of that exact scenario. They're being pushed beyond their skill level, and the farther they're pushed beyond their skill level and expected to learn more without having the foundational skills that will require them to be successful, they just keep getting pushed forward. And the older they get, the more they start comparing themselves to their peers, the more they start being aware of their environment and their failures. So now, not only have they lost the skill level, but they've lost confidence, and their joy of learning is wavering. So I just bring it back down. I find what I call it their just right level. And I start them with things that are so simple. And I want them to feel it, that achievement, that boom, 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 like achievement after achievement after achievement. So now I'm generating this confidence, and then I'm building efficiency, and we're mastering some basic skills. So now they feel more confident, and that joy of learning is brought back into play. And from that point, you can slowly increase the challenge level, and that joy of learning and that confidence is what's going to boost those skill levels. But that's beautiful that you were able to do that, recognize it first, and then take time to go back to addition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just spoke about that in another episode, how, in a traditional school, there's 2 things that can happen. You either have, or 3 things, I guess. The kid can be in the middle of the road. They can be a high achiever, and then they're held back because the teacher has to make sure everybody else is middle of the road most of the time. And then there's the other kids who fall behind, and the longer it goes on, the further they fall behind, which was kind of happening to our daughter. And, going back to probably episode 1, that's why we pulled her out of school, because this was a private, just a private school. And, because where we were didn't have the best schools. And they basically said that they didn't think that they could keep her in the school. And we couldn't believe it after like 1 year. And how old was she?
He's going back to when she was entering kindergarten. The private school that we were trying to get her into for kindergarten said.
Yes. And so obviously it was a little bit later before we pulled her out, but that was like one of the first things that really made us start thinking about this. Was like, you have to be kidding me. She's just she's just a little baby,
5 years old.
5 years old. And you're telling me that you guys can't accommodate her here. And I said, and we're very active parents, as far as like, teaching and, in their education, even before homeschooling. And, it just really, it was just really soured our outlook on the public school there. It was, or the private school, I guess, but, that in that educational setting, it was tough. And, it definitely helped with our decision eventually.
Wow, that's really shocking. I've never heard of that before, especially in a private school. They're able to cater a little bit more to two students. So I'm surprised after not even a full year that they're coming to these conclusions. Oh, but maybe that was, maybe that was divine timing. So, kind of sounds like that move solidified your idea of homeschooling.
It did. It was when we started really thinking about it. And I think we researched for about a year or more, before we actually made the move. But that was definitely the catalyst.
Wow.
Because
well, she's definitely in a better place now.
Yes. Yeah. And, there's going to be a lot of schools too that you have to hope you have a great teacher like yourself that is very good with communication, because there's going to be schools where these kids are falling behind and the parents don't know. And then it's too late. Like you said, all of a sudden they're older. Now they're self-conscious of, their educational level, and they're too embarrassed to ask questions. And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So what you said was really important.
Yes, and thank you for pointing that out, because that's really why, one of the reasons why I do what I do is to prevent that failure and lack of success and that lack of confidence in lower and upper elementary. So I really focus on a lot of habits, and I've studied a lot about how the brain works naturally. So there's this big poo-poo about learning academics too young and teaching kids how to read at age 4 and 5, which I completely understand, because the idea behind that is that they're being forced to do it, or that they're being forced to sit in one space and learn one thing over and over, and it's drudgery. But that's not what I do at all. So what I do is I teach them the foundational skills, and once they master them, they naturally want to do more. So I don't necessarily teach academics, but I teach confidence and I teach mastery, and kids doing multiplication at age 5 and 6 is just a result of that. They have this hunger for it. And in Montessori, we do a lot of mixed, all of our classes are mixed age groups. So if a child is doing addition over here and he hears multiplication over there, it's an easy jump to do multiplication next, because he's been hearing it in this environment for so long. So there's no new vocabulary, there's no new system, it's already in there, and he's mastered the foundational skill, and the next level up is naturally multiplication in this one scenario. Or I work a lot on mastery of letter sound. So by the time the child has mastered 26 letters, they can read. So if they master those letter sounds at age 3 or 4, they're going to naturally want to start reading because they're empowered to do it. And some kids aren't. I've worked with kids that aren't ready at 3 and 4, and that's okay, because they're still working on fine motor. They're still working on, imaginary play, and that's okay. Whenever they're ready, they will be empowered and confident to do so. So we're just building these habits that will move them forward from year to year, and hopefully the intention is to prevent that struggle when they're in first or second or third grade.
I did see that a lot when I was reading up on Montessori, that I just feel like another component of it is working with their confidence. I kind of saw the trend with that, which is obviously very important.
It is. It's really the most important thing. If your child is not confident in something, if you are not confident in something, if you've never played basketball before, but there's a group of, 4 people say, hey, come play with us, you're gonna be like, I don't want to play with you. I don't know anything about it. And that's how kids' educational skills go. If they're not confident in it, they're not even going to want to try it. And us as adults, we're thinking, just try it. Just try. How many times do we say that? Just try it. Just try it. But if they don't, you want to build that confidence so you don't have to ask them to try it, where they're asking you to try it. I want to try it. Can I do this? Can I do that? So it's, again, just changing your mindset and your approach.
I love it. As a parent, changing your mindset, the parent.
Yeah, that's what it is. Because the kids, this is my opinion. This isn't a Montessori thing, but just what I've learned from working with kids, they are the closest, most natural, organic form of humanity. So whatever it is that they're thinking and they do naturally, that's what we used to do. And we have had experiences and life challenges that have tainted us, and we've all grown in different ways. So we're all bringing these different experiences and these different habits and these different opinions to this one child. But if we do it the opposite way, where we focus on what the child naturally does and what the core of humanity is and of our nature and our souls, then everything is possible, and everything stems from that core.
I like it. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Well, while you're talking about what you do with your families and with your kids that you cater to, can you share what resources, because you don't just have the brick and mortar, you have quite a few resources to offer. Can you share that with our homeschooling families?
Yes, thank you for asking. So I started Grasshopper Academics, so now this is my online. With the preschool, you can only reach people within your community, and you're limited by your walls, right? We can only have 20 kids in our school at a time. So I really wanted a way to reach everybody anywhere at all times. So with my online business, Grasshopper Academics, I write my own curriculum. So a lot of it is Montessori inspired because I have that in my mind, but I don't call it Montessori necessarily because I speak from a busy parent. I'm a single parent. I have 2 businesses. My daughter just learned to drive. I got a lot going on. So I've really taken all these challenging skills to teach, like reading and math and sight words, and I put them in a very concise, simple program. And what I do I make it so simple because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, these are busy parents. They have a lot to teach their kids. What is the best way to go about this? I even give you the script to use when you're working with your kids. You say this, and then your child should respond to this, and then you say this next, because I don't want parents to put in too much of their own information into working with kids, because we want kids to naturally build their own understanding of what they're being presented with. And the more we can minimize our presentation of it and our information with it, the better they'll be. So I have ebooks, downloadable curriculum that parents can buy online right away. I have a shippable product with sight word curriculum, which is, I use 17 words that incorporate every letter of the alphabet with just sight words. So my idea with sight words is traditionally, kids learn to read first, so sounding out CVC words and blending together sounds, and then they learn sight words. So basically what we're telling kids is, okay, now that you know how to read and you've been practicing for a year or 2, now I want you to forget everything you learned and just memorize these sight words. So in my mind, and what I'm thinking, the way a kid thinks is that's backwards. So if we can turn that around and teach kids sight words first, so at the age of 3, when they naturally, their ability to rote memorization is so phenomenal at 3 and 4, that you can put the word "the" in front of them and let them see it 3 times a day, and they'll memorize that it's the word "the." So I teach sight words first. So when they go into reading, they already have a bank of sight words. And because sight words are found in every sentence, they can already read a portion of the sentence without even knowing how to read. So this approach allows them to already feel confident because they know some of the words that they're going to be reading. So I have a sight word curriculum that teaches 5 kindergarten skills with only minutes a day, reading ebooks, math ebooks that are really, really simple. You can do with very minimal knowledge, experience, and time.
I love it. You are speaking to the homeschool mama soul right now with the whole giving us back time, because we definitely need that. And I am always looking for what is simple, because to me, things are going to get done if it's simple and practical. If it's complicated, it ain't going to work in my home. Like, it's just not.
Absolutely. And your home is no different than anybody else with a parent and child in it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm going to have to try your method in teaching the child to read, because we have a 3-year-old this year. So I definitely want to practice with him on that approach that you just discussed. That's really interesting with the sight words first.
Well, I would love to send you my sight word curriculum just as a thank you for having me on your podcast.
Oh, awesome.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then I can share with
Well,
everyone.
three is, yeah, thank you. 3 is just ideal because they've been seeing their siblings and other adults do all these immaculate things for 3 years, and they're finally at the stage where they can manipulate their hands and they have more control over their bodies and they can express themselves. So this is the time. Do it now. They want to touch. They want to try things. They're saying, I want to do it. I can do it myself. And so we need to take advantage of that, because at some point they're not going to have that mentality. So 3 is ideal.
That's exciting. Now I'm like ready to go with this.
Go with it, girl. Yes.
I needed this encouragement, especially for the 3-year-old. This is the first year that we will have a 3-year-old where, I mean, of course, we're always in charge of their education, but before with the other 2, like I said, we were both full-time workers. So most of the time that our 3-year-olds were spending was in the schools and the daycares and the preschools. So unfortunately, a lot of the education came from those other people. So this is the first time that we get to really mold our 3-year-old into how we want him to be, and get to put our, I don't know, our touch on it, right?
Yeah. Well, now you both have so much experience and so much knowledge. It's going to be a piece of cake for you. Piece of cake.
Yeah.
Now you did, again, I said it earlier, but you did fail to mention that you are also on Facebook and Instagram. And from what I have seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like your Facebook page focuses on parenting tips that are rolled in with the learning tips. And then your Instagram, I feel like, really focuses on the academics. I really like your theme days that you have in Facebook. Like, for instance, you have Magic Minute Monday. And I was watching one of your, no, I don't know if this one was a video, if I was just reading your post for Magic Minute Monday, and how you were speaking about being intentional and effective with your time. And I just feel like as parents, many of us feel like there's just not enough time in the day, like I just said, from taking care of your family, the house, schooling our kids, or going to work. And then, I mean, we don't even want to forget self-care, if we can try to fit that into the mix as well. So I love that one technique that you recommended for Magic Minute, where at night you jot down 3 tasks you really want or need to accomplish the next day. You then point out in your post that basically how you'll start your next day with productivity as opposed to preparation. Like, that was genius to me.
So yeah, everybody, we had some technical difficulties. We lost her. She is on the road and she lost audio, but that's okay. We were almost at the end. So the last thing we were going to ask her is where we could find her. And so she wrote in the chat box so we could let you all know. We'll also put it in the show notes. But you can find her at Grasshopper Academics. This is her website, where you can purchase downloadable ebooks and physical curriculum. Grasshopper Academics on Instagram, Grasshopper Academics Facebook group, and Grasshopper Montessori Preschool in Seattle. And then she's gonna email us all the links, and we'll have that in the show notes, like I said. So we hope you guys all enjoyed. We had a great time. Thank you. She can still hear us, so she just can't talk back. But
She's doing the sign language clap.
yes.
Thank you, Natalie. You were wonderful. We were so excited to have you on here, and this was an awesome episode. So we are so appreciative. Bye.